Military Officers Association of America's continuing series on educational programs that are designed to assist you, your family, with your career, health, and life decisions. I'm Pat Williams, Program Director for Engagement and Career Transition here at the Military Officers Association of America. I transitioned after 35 years in the Navy, and while I considered myself to be worldwide assignable, one of my considerations was possibly relocating to a state that was military retirement pay friendly. If this is also one of your considerations, then hopefully you will find this webinar very useful. For today's webinar on career transition and state advocacy, we highlight the Defense State Liaison Office, or DSLO, a leader in state legislation, in the state legislation space. MOAA's network of councils and chapters are also a part of a range of state and local advocacy efforts, and they often collaborate with their DSLO counterparts. As many of our members and service members look to often transition to different states, we're excited to bring you today a webinar focused on state-level advocacy, and thank you so much for joining. First, just a couple of words about the On24 platform for anyone who may not be familiar. You can see here on this slide where you can rearrange your screen windows to suit your purposes. You can see where we have some resources available. Please also note the buttons that highlighted at the bottom, circled there in yellow, where you see it looks like a question mark, the Q&A box. That's where, and some of you have already figured that out, you can ask your questions there, and I will be monitoring the Q&A box as we go through and try and get those answered. Also, my colleague, Kim, who's listed as MOAA Transition, will also help answer some of the questions. Upon completion of a survey, we do not typically send out the slides, but you will get a survey link that will, a survey, and then after that, you'll get a link to this presentation. And of course, any MOAA members can at all times go to the webinar and see an archived presentation of this webinar. The next couple of slides are just a couple of words about MOAA. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan legislative advocacy association focused on protecting the earned rights and benefits of our military service members, their families, and survivors. While I primarily support our Career Transition Center, MOAA's primary mission is advocacy, again, on behalf of all the uniformed services. And to highlight just a couple, we supported the post 9/11 GI Bill, which was the largest change to military health education benefits, rather, since World War II, BAH reduction, basic allowance for housing, COLA repeals, and the widow's tax, or SBP-DIC. We were also instrumental in that elimination. So there's a lot of great things that we do here, and we invite you and encourage you to join our effort as we continue to support and fight for our earned pay and benefits. Throughout this ongoing pandemic, MOAA is staying connected and engaged and here for you. Find the very latest in news, resources, and updates that may affect you, your family, or someone you know. You can see the link there on the screen, or you just go to MOAA.org, and there's a wealth of information up there available. We also have a foundation there. We established a COVID-19 relief fund to support those military families and veterans who may not have been getting supported through any other means. For anyone who has contributed, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you so very much for that. This fund allows us to come to the aid of many who are in need, as well as to continue to put on virtual training and career programs like today. And if you want to know more about MOAA's foundation, again, just go to MOAA.org. MOAA's career transition programs rival anything you will find in the private sector. We deliver trusted and focused decision support to assist our service members and their families with life transition. You can see here just a couple of our events coming up. We have a virtual career fair at the end of the month on the 30th. And before that, we have a how to work a virtual career fair if you haven't ever been to a virtual career fair. And then we, of course, also have a presentation on one of our greatest challenges, and if we should survive our spouse or our partner, are we prepared? There's a 2-hour presentation on the 6th of October. We also have just a couple of other events that are coming up. So if you're not so successful that first go around in the job market, I just had a guy that I talked to yesterday doing a resume critique, and he said, you know, I've been out since X amount of time and I haven't found a job and it's taken a lot longer. Well, it may take a little longer, but failure is simply not in our DNA. We pick ourselves up, we dust off, whatever we have to do, we move on to the next opportunity, we use our network, and you're welcome to join this webinar that's coming up on October 12th. Also, any member is invited to attend the annual meeting that's coming up on the 15th of October. And of course, many of us leaving the military are uncertain or are unprepared for that salary and benefits negotiation discussion that might happen. Well, there's an upcoming webinar on that as well. And then finally, at the end of October, there's a couple of other ones, but one is on life insurance. So we would be delighted to have you join us for any of these upcoming MOAA events. And now to the main event. I am pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Marcus Beauregard. He leads an office of 8 or so regional liaisons, a senior liaison who oversees the operations, and a senior state policy analyst. Together, they conduct strategic planning, they do legislative analysis, outreach, and education, assisting our governors, state legislators, and other state officials in addressing the department's priority issues affecting our service members and their families at the state level. Marcus and his DSLO team of professionals vigorously assist in the passage on average of 70 state bills per year, influencing a range of titles and state statutes, including absentee voting, occupational licensing, unemployment compensation, consumer protection, K through 16 education, family law, child advocacy, also public health and National Guard support. The Defense State Liaison Office consults annually with staffs working for the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness, the military departments, National Guard Bureau, and the joint staff to develop potential state issues to ensure state policymakers consider issues that are timely and relevant to our military community. Mr. Beauregard, who completed a full career in the world's greatest Air Force, epitomizes the MOAA motto of never stop serving. Sir, we appreciate you and your team's time this week. We know it's a busy week this week for you guys as you meet for your annual meeting, but we appreciate your time this afternoon. And sir, over to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will give a moment for Mr. Beauregard to share his screen and bring up his slides.
Can you see it? Hopefully it's showing Defense State Liaison Office update on state initiatives. I'm assuming that you can see it. Pat, can you see that on the screen?
Yes, sir, I certainly can.
Okay, we'll press on then. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and we're very appreciative to be able to come and give you an update on what we're doing. My whole team has logged on, so they're going to participate mostly as just like yourselves, listening in on the webinar. I have 2 of my colleagues who are going to join me in the presentation later on to talk about new issues that we're going to be working in 2022. What I'd like to do is just to walk through a few slides, familiarize you with who we are, what we do, talk about our key issues that we're working in 2021, give you an update on where we stand on those issues, how that relates to our previous years, and then, as I said, go through what we're considering for 2022. So, to begin with, as Pat said, we're a small office. In fact, we had, since that bio was written, we attrited 1 position, so there's now only 10 of us, 2 of us in the headquarters, 8 of us in the field. And you can see how they all align in terms of regions. And there will be some changes, and I'll bring up that near the end of the conversation as how we're going to realign some of our regional liaisons. Mr. Dale Vandehay, who works the Southern State region, will be retiring this year. So we'll be getting a new member to our team come this December. We will certainly miss Dale. He is one of our plank owners. He has been one of the originals that has worked on this team since its inception and has done just a tremendous job. Just to familiarize you, we have a very simple mission. We alleviate barriers for military families, and where we find that there's disconnects between state and federal laws, we try to harmonize those if they have impact on military families. As you can see, we've done a lot of bills over the years, and we continue to be very productive. And you already heard about how we review our issues and develop them, and we do all the research necessary to make these things attainable through the states. We have to certainly school ourselves on what's the status of these things in the states and what are the dynamics, so that when we are asked by legislators or folks such as yourself, we can provide some insights into how these things impact states and certainly how they impact military families. So I'm going to run through our key issues, and I put them in 3 batches: licensure, education, and then health and welfare of the military community. And so I'm going to start with licensure, one of our highlighted issues, certainly one that's getting a lot of traction right now. And what we are doing now to try to improve the licensure capability of military spouses. We've been working this issue since about 2009. We have learned an awful lot from states in terms of the dynamics of this particular issue, and we've watched it change over the years, how states have become more progressive, have learned to modify their laws to become even more supportive of military spouses. And in 2020, we released a report, the Secretary released a report that put our initiative in a new light. And it was based on our research at that time of what we had seen occur over the past 10 years, or at that time, 9 years. And I'll show you that on the next slide. But what we've been working in 2021 is 4 issues. And we put them in sort of a time frame on how we see them in a strategic view. We see that assuring the implementation and accessibility of whatever's on the state books as being something that is relatively immediately accessible or actionable by the states, because it doesn't really require any law. It just means that the board structures need to perhaps engage in the laws that are on the books or modify their processes to make it more accessible to a military spouse, i.e. have it on a website, make sure the application includes information pertaining to a military spouse, and making sure that their staff are well trained so when they are contacted, they're able to guide a military spouse through the process. Enhancing state license laws we see as a near-term action, something that a state can consider teeing up a new piece of legislation in the coming legislative session that can hopefully reach what we have put down as a baseline of providing a military spouse a license within 30 days of application and getting that application simplified to where it doesn't require all the verifying documents. So there's a minimal amount of paperwork that has to be submitted for the military spouse to attain that license. And we're not saying that has to be the permanent license. It could be a temporary license, but a license within 30 days. We have taken on military spouse teacher certification as another near-term issue, and we've done that separately because our efforts from about 2012 through 2016 made changes in state law, but very few of those state laws impacted teachers. And it was associated with the fact that teaching certificates are managed through the Department of Education. They go through education committees in the legislature and affect a different title of the law. And so they have to be done almost concurrently. And we didn't have the bandwidth to take on that many committees and that many bills at one time. So we've gone back and we've done quite well, I think, in catching up military spouses. And I'll show you the status in a subsequent slide. And then finally, we've been supporting license compacts as a long-term solution because of what they can do for military spouses. And I'll show you some of that on the next slide. This is sort of a pictorial portrayal of our research that we did and the strategic approach that we presented to the Secretary as a way of addressing that continuum and the continual improvement processes that states have engaged. As you can see at the bottom, we've got that immediate, near-term, and long-term solutions. But I want to talk first about the spectrum at the top. What we did is we started to research what states had been considering as reciprocity, because a lot of states had defined their solution set, their legislation, as having created reciprocity. And we wanted to compare how these things, these different laws looked in terms of a definition of reciprocity, simply saying that you accept mine and I'll accept yours, a very broad but very simple approach to licensure. And what we found is that states could be found along this continuum where, in the red, you don't have any portability. In the yellow, you have an implementation of endorsement, temporary licensure, and expedited application laws that facilitate but don't necessarily get to that bottom line of 30-day licensing. And then you have other options that do get to that 30-day licensing requirement, and they're not all the same. And we don't expect them to be all the same within the states, but some of them provide an expedited approach by not requiring the spouse to provide any documentation for substantial equivalency, but they go off of the Practice Act of the previous state and compare practice acts. There are others that have universal licensure that says that we're not going to accept or evaluate the individual's substantial equivalency to the competency requirements of the state. We're going to accept that from the standpoint of them having had a license in a previous state and check simply that the individual is in good standing and current and can pass a background check. And then there's other states that will accept an individual's license as the document necessary to get a job within their state. And certainly those approach that element of reciprocity. What we've seen, though, is that occupational interstate licenses, compacts, provide what can be considered, I think, the closest thing to true reciprocity, because it essentially says that an individual can hold a license in one state and be able to go to all other member states without any further licensing. So there's no review, there's nothing necessary other than for that individual to hold a license in a home state. So here's the occupational compacts that we have been working with. And just a summation of what we see as being a very positive part of this whole effort in terms of compacts. And I think what's really important in this whole process in terms of compacts is that the states are the ones that are managing this, and that the states determine the competency level for being a member of that compact, and the states determine how to share their authority and responsibility so that they can oversee the occupational practices within that licensed occupation to protect public safety. And that what we're seeing is that the most productive license compacts use this process called privilege to practice, or multi-state license, that allows an individual to hold one state license and to be able to work in all other member states. And there are other ancillary benefits to this whole compact process, such as telepractice opportunities and updating the interstate nature of practice that is now supported by technology. Listed are the 8 compacts that we have been working with, notably the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact, otherwise known as PsyPac, does not have the privilege to practice element. It is basically a telepractice compact, but we have been very supportive of it because of its function to enhance the opportunity for mental health services for military families. And we saw that as being an additional benefit of that particular compact. Also, the Emergency Medical Services Compact, License Compact, has an expedited endorsement process. But having talked to the overseer of that particular compact, it is a very streamlined, a very, very simple process that requires very little documentation. So we saw that as also a very beneficial compact to support, particularly because they also have specific military stipulations within that compact to support spouses and transitioning service members. The license compact process continues. It's continuing to improve and grow, so much so that the Congress in the FY 2020 National Defense Authorization Act gave the department the authority to establish a cooperative agreement with the Council of State Governments to provide grants to professions or occupations to help them develop their own license compacts. It requires a level of effort to bring people together to define the requirements within a compact, to make sure that they get it right, that it's something that states will accept, that most states will accept. And so they provide the grant funding to those professions to work with the Council of State Governments, who has the National Center for Interstate Compacts, to facilitate development of those compact documents. At the bottom, you can see the professions that were accepted, as well as those professions that had also put in a request or a proposal to seek funding. So we have thus far funded 5 professions: teaching, licensed clinical social workers, cosmetology and barbering, dental hygiene and dentistry, and massage therapy. And those are ongoing. We're going to be meeting with the teaching group, a technical advisor or technical assistance group, this coming week to start the compact for teaching. Massage therapy has already begun. The cosmetology and barbering and the licensed clinical social workers will start the first week in October. and dental hygiene will begin before the end of the calendar year. In mid-October, CSG will release another request for proposals with a deadline of 1 February 2022, so that we can look at another tranche of potential professions and choose approximately 5 more professions to start the compact process. I want to turn to our key education issues. And these are the 4 that we worked in 2021. Virtual schools. This is not the COVID-19 version of virtual schools necessarily. This is allowing access to military families to virtual schools, primarily to provide continuity to military kids who need to catch up or need to continue with a course in order to stay in line for a specific line of curriculum, so that it's more for the transition of students and not necessarily for virtual school participation because of some kind of ongoing concern. Advanced enrollment is another opportunity for transitioning children. It basically gives an option or an opportunity for military families to sign up in a school district before they get to the location. So based on orders, they can contact a school district and alert them that they're coming to that location, that they're going to find accommodations in that district, and then allow them to start signing their children up for specific courses or specific requirements that will aid the child when they finally get there. It can also give them the opportunity to put their names in for a lottery for charter schools, magnet schools, special programs that they may otherwise not have access to. Purple Star program is something that we've just started this year, and it's been very popular. And it's a program that recognizes the good actions and good behaviors of a school district or a specific school in terms of setting up programs for the transitioning of military children. And it also recognizes schools that may not have a large military community or even a reserve community, and still wants to be engaged with the military, and recognize those schools for showing the value of military service and civic responsibility through their programs. And finally, a smaller issue that we've been dealing with that corrects a glitch in the law. It ensures that military kids get in-state tuition at the time of being accepted into an institution, and continues that on through the time that their parents may leave the local, may leave the state, as opposed to simply just during from the time that they're enrolled. There have been circumstances where families were caught in the middle, had to pay outside or tuition because they had been accepted in the school. The parents PCS'd, and then they finally had the opportunity to enroll, and then were told, no, they don't get in-state tuition rates. So it essentially just fixes a glitch in the law. Let me turn to our last 2 issues that we have right now for health and welfare of the military community, and that's child abuse and neglect reporting. This is to support the family advocacy program. The department has a responsibility to report all cases of child abuse and neglect, and 70% of military families live off the installation, so there's a much higher potential for those circumstances to occur off the installation. What we ensure is that the Child Protective Services have a responsibility to identify military families as part of the intake, and then to report those cases to military officials at the onset of the investigation rather than waiting until the case is adjudicated. And then finally, the Ask the Question campaign, which is something we found the state of New Hampshire was doing. And it was a way of encouraging their state agencies to simply ask the question during intake or have it on their forms as part of intake. Have you or a family member ever served in the military? As a way of identifying veterans and families of veterans, or reservists and family of reservists, or even for active duty, so that they could make sure that they got the appropriate service, and that in some cases that they could be directed to other agencies such as the Veterans Administration to get an appropriate service that they might need. So I'm going to turn to show you now how we've been doing. So this is just a tabulation of our issues. You can see them down the side, the ones that I talked about, and the states that currently have policy. Notably, you can see that teacher certification now is at 24, and that states that with enhanced license portability are at 28. License access is at 30. States with license compacts are at 42. There's about 30 of the states who have at least 3 compacts. And other notable is that Purple Star program, and again, we only started this year, is already at 28, and advanced enrollment is at 31. So these issues have had good traction in the states. And as you can see, we've outdone ourselves this year in terms of the number of bills and policy changes that have been completed. We're almost up to 120, where we generally are around 70 for a good year. So much so, I'll show you on this chart. This is our normal roller coaster. The dotted line is our normal roller coaster of sponsors, bills, and enacted legislation. And that's the normal course of how things go. And you can see how we have had a much higher take this year in terms of bills, sponsors, and, as you would expect, enacted bills as a result. I'm going to show these next 2 slides without saying much, but I just wanted to have these available for everybody to see, and I'm sure we're going to share these slides with you all so that you can see have a look at how your state is doing specifically. I'll show you the rest of the states in the next slide. But if you look at the legend at the top, you can see that the hollow ball represents introduced bills. The half-filled ball is where we see that the policy outcome has been partially reached, but not entirely. So there's still room for improvement. And then the green ball is where we've had enactment this year, as opposed to the gray ball, which is where we've had enactment in previous years. I'll go on to the next, so you can see how the rest of the states have been doing. but as you can see, there's been a lot of activity and a lot of great effort on the part of state legislatures to accommodate these initiatives and to take care of their military families within their states. Now I'm going to go on to 2022. What we're going to do to keep our list to 10 issues, which is a comfortable way of us being able to market our initiatives. We're going to include teachers in with the other professions, and so just limit it to our 3 lines of action as we go forward. In education, we're going to put virtual schools in the emeritus status. Doesn't mean we're going to stop working virtual schools. It just means that we needed to have some headroom for other priorities that are emerging. And so you can see our list is going to continue with advanced enrollment, Purple Star recognition program, in-state tuition for 1 more year, and a new issue, open enrollment flexibility. And I'm going to have Kelly Mae Douglas brief that one. And under health and welfare issues, we are going to take on a rather complex but very important issue called concurrent jurisdiction through retrocession. And I'm going to have Chris Arnold give you a short brief on that. So we're going to start with Kelly Mae Douglas. Are you there?
I am here, Marcus. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Can you give everyone a snapshot of open enrollment flexibility?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm the Pacific Southwest Regional Liaison for the Defense State Liaison Office, and I'm the team lead on our new issue, as Marcus mentioned, open enrollment flexibility. The premise of this issue and why we took it up is because military families are oftentimes at a disadvantage in terms of the placement options for their military child. Due to military-directed assignments, the timing of the assignments, and oftentimes the subsequent moves that military and family encounters after their PCS, when they go from temporary to permanent housing, or when they're required to reside on the installation, as is the case often with command leadership. So what we're asking the states to do is to explore a menu of options that we've provided that will offer military families enhanced access to existing open enrollment policies and programs available to all students by really just accounting for and accommodating the special needs of military families as they move, as they PCS and as they encounter those subsequent moves. And so we think that this issue really allows the opportunity for states to accommodate military students and reduce the burden of frequent moves while still preserving kind of a level playing field and not creating a special class. So that's kind of an overview. I'm happy to answer any questions about this issue, but we're really excited about it and looking forward to engaging with you on it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kelly Mae. Chris, if you could give us a quick rundown on concurrent jurisdiction through retrocession. Okay.
I don't see Chris on the presenter list anymore. He might have been kicked off. Oh, there he is. Okay. He just got on again.
Okay. We'll give him a moment. I don't want to steal his thunder. Well, I'll go ahead and start the conversation. He can always pick it up and finish it for me. Concurrent jurisdiction is something that is an emerging requirement. Excuse me, that was identified basically because of problematic sexual behavior among youth, and it requires a change in jurisdictional oversight of military installations to allow juvenile offenders to be able to be adjudicated through state courts that are family courts or the equivalent of a family court, rather than taking that individual to federal court where they have to engage in the adult court practices and adult court outcomes. So the concurrent jurisdiction issue is not simple. Some installations have concurrent jurisdiction between federal and state jurisdiction. Others have exclusive jurisdiction. The federal government has exclusive jurisdiction over the installation, and in others it has partial jurisdiction over the installation. And what has to be sorted is, first of all, those locations where we need to engage the state to obtain concurrent jurisdiction. And then we have to find out what states do in those circumstances. Some states have a retrocession process, that is to say, a methodology for accepting the jurisdiction back from the federal government. And so we have to go through and figure out that portion of it, and then if they do have a retrocession process, be able to tell the military departments about that retrocession process. And in those circumstances where there is not, obtaining support from the legislature or from the governor or both to develop that process, and a process to allow these courts to assert jurisdiction over the military installations. Chris, are you there?
Yes, Marcus, you really said it all.
I'm sorry I had to do that. I should have, when I heard the possibility of you there.
I had to call in on the phone, so my apologies there. But, fully concur. Our effort is to assess the states to determine whether retrocession can be achieved through their existing laws and practices, and request legislation in circumstances where their state law does not support retrocession, in order that the relevant state court can assert jurisdiction automatically.
You always say it so much better. So that is the new issue that we're going to be engaging in this year, so we're still in the process of determining how we are going to reach out to the states. We expect that our first line of effort is to get with the state attorneys general and their organizations to have them provide us a laydown on how their state does retrocession and determine jurisdictional requirements, and then proceed from there. So next I want to show our team. Oh, I had these teed up for us to talk about, but I think we already covered that, so that's fine. Next, I was going to just cover our organization and some changes that we have, and also provide you the names and phone numbers and emails of the individuals who are engaged in this process. We've already met Christopher and Kelly May. The other individuals are listed there. And I've already mentioned that Dale Vandehey is going to retire this year. and his replacement has already been selected. His name is Jeremy Hilton, and Jeremy also lives in San Antonio, as does Dale. If you notice, I've highlighted 2 states in red. Those are essentially changes to what you saw on the map in the first slide. New Mexico had been part of Dale's portfolio, and that's being moved over to Kelly Mays. And Missouri had been part of Martin Dempsey's portfolio, and that's being moved into what will be Jeremy Hilton's portfolio. And we'll have some other subsequent changes probably in the summer of 2022, but these are the first 2 that we wanted to action in terms of realigning our portfolio, the portfolios of the individual regional liaisons, partially to get them in the right conference, so to speak, when it comes to legislative, national legislative meetings, and partly just to balance out the workload, because some of the states have 2-year sessions, some states have every other year sessions, and we're just very mindful about the workload that these hardworking people are accomplishing. So, final slide. That's my contact information. More importantly, that second line there is the URL for our website, Military State Policy Source, where you can find the status of all the legislation that we've been working, and all those actions that you saw on our status slide are included in that website. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions and be able to turn the mic back over to, and possibly the screen back over to Pat. I'm going to stop sharing that. There we go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marcus. Really appreciate that very informative brief. That was amazing and wonderfully done. And thank you to Kelly and to Chris. We do have a question that I'd like to kick it off with. Just a reminder, though, as you can see, please wait for the survey. We value your feedback. We'd appreciate any comments that you may have. You may contact MOAA at transition@moaa.org. And as a reminder, within 3 to 5 days, you will get a link to this presentation where you can re-look at the presentation and pause it at any point. We don't necessarily send out the slides, but you will be able to see the presentation. And now, Marcus, I will turn to some of the wonderful questions that we're getting. First is from Jesse Powell. And he says, I'd like to get involved with my state's DSLO. How do I do that? Are there positions within state offices?
Well, what you saw is basically who we are. We only have 8 regional folks. And so the best way to engage is to get a hold of the liaison for your particular region. And they will work with you on the initiatives that are active in your state. And they welcome that kind of support, because having the input from MOAA has always been very, very beneficial. And obviously, an organization like MOAA can do things, work efforts that we are not allowed to with regards to our position, our standing as the Department of Defense federal agency. So we stay out of the lobbying business. What we do is we inform legislators of the importance of certain issues, and then we support their need for information. But we know that MOAA can do lots of other things.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Appreciate that response. We do have a comment from Brian, just says, great overview. So again, thank you so much for that. And there is another question from Charles Clements. What is the URL for the state policy site?
Okay, I'll do it. It is it's listed there on the last slide, but it's basically https:// state policy, all one word, dot military one source, one being spelled out, all one word, dot mil.
Thank you for that. And what I find too is if you simply Google DSLO or if you type out Defense State Liaison Office, all kinds of wonderful information will come up. So Charles, hopefully you got that. And there's also a request from Latanya Reynolds. Can you show the rep's contact information again? We can try and put that slide up again. I found it on the website. It's easily found on the website, but Marcus, you're free to throw that slide back up if you'd like. I don't have any other slides that I need to display.
Okay, I'm trying. May not work. Well, I'll give it my best shot, though.
That's all we can ask. Let's see.
So what's another question while we're working on that?
Let's see what other questions are there. And we've already answered the question about the slides. You're not able to download those slides, but you will get a link to the recording in 3 to 5 days. There was a comment thanking you for the information, which is wonderful. And also the question about, will this be recorded? And yes, this is being recorded. And again, a recording will be sent out in 3 to 5 business days. Let's see if there are any. And I believe the regional liaison contact information is displayed on the slide. And feel free to take a screenshot. If you select whatever that Windows button looks like, if you're on a Windows-based computer, the Shift and the S, you can easily do a screenshot, or you could easily take a picture of it with your phone if you don't want to wait until you get the 3 to 5 days where you get the presentation recorded webinar sent out to you. And also, as I found, if you do a Google search or go to the Military One Service website, I was able to pull up a list of the regional liaisons, knowing that they will change. Mr. Van der Hey will be moving on, but the list is out there. And so, and also there's an email link where if you're on that website, there's an email to where you could click that link and send an email to your liaison. Oh, great. Ms. Reynolds said that she got it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Marcus, for displaying that.
You're welcome.
And I'm just checking to see if there are any additional questions. If anyone has any additional questions, please, the time is now. We only have a couple of minutes left. Put them in the Q&A and Marcus and his team will be happy to answer. Otherwise, we will wrap up for this afternoon's wonderful, informative presentation. Barring any more questions, I'll give it another minute or so for additional questions. And while we take a look at that, again, Marcus, Kelly, Christopher, and the rest of your team, I know how busy this week is, and I cannot thank you enough for stopping to do this for this afternoon's presentation. It really means a lot to us. So thank you very much. The information is timely, it's relevant, it's critical. And as I said in the beginning, you know, I had this notion after 35 years of service that I would stop and not work, right? Go figure. But I would go find a state that was military retirement pay friendly. I haven't gotten there yet, but I am so appreciative of the things that both you guys do and, of course, the work we do here at on advocacy at the Military Officers Association of America, along with the rest of the Military Coalition. So really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this afternoon.
Certainly our pleasure, Pat. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You're very welcome. Not seeing any additional questions, so I will give you back 5 minutes of your time this afternoon. I've given it a minute or two. No additional questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and you guys have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. I will be ending the webcast now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. We're out here.